5. The inner structure of the earth. If you look at an animal body of whatever kind, you will, without having studied further the anatomy of all animal bodies, quite easily understand and see that either the blood or the juices pass through all veins and other vessels in the same way as through those veins and vessels which are present in the animal heart, and that at all points the pulse or impulse occurs at the same moment as in the actual heart. And it is easy to see that in an animal body there is therefore no need for more motive forces than just one, which is sufficient for innumerable vessels. So it is also the case with the heart of the earth. Through its pulse or impulse, which repeats itself every 6 hours, the most diverse sustaining forces of the earth's interior are driven into all parts of the earth's body. And there is no need for a second, fourth, or fifth driving force of another kind. Therefore, all phenomena as an earth body life process depend on this sole driving force. High tide and low tide and other elevations of the outer earth's crust, as well as the winds derived from it, all have their origin there. For this heart of the earth, at the same time, also represents the place of the lungs in the animal body, from which it is then explicable that both the regular and irregular expansions and recontractures of the earth's body stem from only this. But in order to grasp this general foregoing all the more thoroughly, it will therefore be necessary to briefly see through the inner earth structure as much as possible, in order to arrive through this picture at the view of how the countless other secondary centres of gravity are set into the same motion by the one main centre of gravity, both in the earth body itself and in the animal bodies. What does the inner structure of the earth look like? In order to understand this more or less thoroughly, we must first understand how not only the earth, but even every plant, every fruit on the tree, as well as every animal, and finally man himself, distinguishes himself physically in a certain way into 3 bodies within himself. Let us go to a tree. What is the first thing we discover about it? It is the bark, which separates itself into the outer dead bark and the inner living bark, called sapwood. This is the first tree. The second tree, quite different from the first, is the actual solid wood, a combination of countless tubes that run side by side in the most beautiful order. This is the second tree. The third or innermost tree is the nucleus, usually another tube, which is completely filled with a sponge-like cellular tissue, which cells first suck in the juices from the earth, purify them in themselves, and then, by their extensive and compressive power, expel them into all the innumerable organs of the other tree. In this way, you have now seen 3 trees in one. If we look at a fruit on a tree, what do we discover first? For example, in a nut, chestnut, acorn. In short, in whatever kind of fruit. The first thing is the bark, which is twofold, just like the bark of the tree. Then comes the protective shell as the second part of the fruit, which is usually the firmest. Only behind this shell is the third and main part of the fruit, in which part only the heart or the germinal shell is active. Let us go to an animal. The first thing that is obvious to everyone about an animal is the skin, as the first animal, which shows the whole shape of the animal when stuffed. Inside the often multi-layered skin, the solid skeleton is bound together with a muscular and partly cartilaginous mass of flesh, and it is strengthened like the hard shell of a nut, or like the skull of any head. This is the second animal, also called bone animal. Within this animal is its viscera, as lungs, liver, spleen, intestines, and in these nobler parts of the animal, the life-producing heart itself. This is again the third animal, through which the 2 outer ones receive their nourishment and animation, namely through innumerable organs and vessels, which go out from the inner animal into the 2 outer ones. You will find this same relationship in your own physique. If you want to see it even more clearly, take an egg. There you will find the same again. In short, you may take from all plants, whichever you want, and look at its fruits or seeds as you like. You may also go through the whole animal kingdom, and you will find everywhere one and the same thing. But why is this relationship so similar? The answer is very easy. And from it arises that contemplative reason for which children resemble their parents, and the fruits resemble the seeds, from which they emerge again as seeds. As, for example, the grain of wheat is a seed which, scattered in the earth, brings forth the same seed again as fruit. So also, all organic, more or less animated bodily existence on the surface of the earth carries the type of the earth body itself. Also with the body of the earth, the exterior is in a certain way the dead bark, within which there is already a more living and perceptible bark. Just as the bark of a tree, although sometimes very fissured, is not so completely dead that it is not able to provide sufficient nourishment for the little moss plants that appear on it. And just as the outer skin of animals is not so dead that countless hairs and little hairs, and not infrequently also parasitic animals, would not be able to get their sufficient nourishment through it. Just so the outer earth's crust, which is dead, or rather impalpable only under certain conditions, is not so completely dead that all countless plants and animals would not be able to get the nourishment they desire through it. Within this outer earth crust, which is about 20 German miles thick, 20 by 7.42 equals 148.4 kilometers. Yeah. Sometimes even less. The second earth begins. This is the actual firmest part of the earth body. Admittedly, not equally firm everywhere, but nevertheless, still firm enough everywhere to carry the outer earth crust spread over it with the greatest ease. Within this second earth is finally the actually living part of the earth's body, or its viscera, in which the heart of the earth's body is actually located. But how these three earths are connected with each other, how the inner heart instinct works through them, we will discuss in more detail in the next presentation.